Howdy guys, I've been feeling a little nostalgic lately, so I thought I should pick up a game I haven't played in quite a long time. So I decided to pick up SpongeBob SquarePants Battle for Bikini Bottom. Now I haven't played this game in over 10 years, but now that this overratedly underrated game is underrated again, I thought I should pick it up and play it, at least until it becomes overrated again.
In the distant decade of the 2000s, one company reigned supreme. Thick. They were riding the wave of licensed kids games. I don't know if it's just me, but playing Mario Galaxy 2 on the same console that I play Wall-E just feels wrong. I was never that much into licensed games made with hate and that were designed to just make some cash. But there was a golden year, 2003. That year, THQ wanted to bring good to the children of the world by making a SpongeBob game. A good one. Battle for Bikini Bottom. Basically every other SpongeBob game before or after Battle for Bikini Bottom was pretty average for licensed games. Before then, SpongeBob games were very bottom-of-the-barrel, run-of-the-mill generic platformers. A lot of these games were clearly made just to cash in on the show. Luckily for all you SpongeBob game connoisseurs out there, THQ decided to not partner with some random nobodies, but instead partner with the random nobodies that made Wall-E on the Wii.
Well, how could I say no to that?
Heavy Iron Studios took on development of this game, having previously developed Scooby-Doo Night of 100 Frights back in 2002. Surprisingly, it only took them around a year to make Battle for Bikini Bottom before it was released on October 21st, 2003 in North America. Now first off, the story works so well for this game that it could very much just be the plot of a regular SpongeBob episode. Basically, Plankton makes a machine that was supposed to create a robot army, but they went all haywire and took over his lab.
Now how many times have you played a game with robots in the story? I take it not a lot.
First and foremost, I must say the developers definitely did their research when making the game. They managed to make Bikini Bottom and most of the levels feel like they could actually be a part of the show, because not only do they throw in some fan service, but the dialogue between the characters has some of the same style of comedy as seen in the show, and I managed to even get a laugh in there once in a while. Of course, THQ still manages to disappoint me by not having either Mr. Krabs or Mermaid Man's voice actors in the game. The bad thing about this is that their new voice actors are noticeably different, and by that I mean very different.
Money!
I can feel my bones melting.
There are three main characters you play as. SpongeBob can roll into a ball and has a variety of bubble weapons that can be used in strategic ways. He can use a bowling ball, spin attack, and hell, he even gets a bubble torpedo later in the game, so pack your bags, Big Sky Interactive, you're f***ed. Patrick is strong and mostly uses melee attacks. He can body slam into the ground, belly attack, and can also throw fruits and stones that help defeat enemies and solve puzzles. Sandy is just Miss Douchebag USA and can basically fly anywhere. She can use her lasso to defeat enemies as well as swing around on giant Texas symbols. I can confirm that's hilarious. Each level is mostly open with collectibles scattered throughout. The main collectible you're looking for is the Golden Spatula, which is this game's versions of the Mario Stars. Similarly, there are other golden spatulas you can nab from beating enemy gauntlets, boss battles, and other simple tasks. Some of these tasks require you to have abilities you unlock later in the game, which adds some replayability. There are some monotonous sliding segments that feel mostly aged in their controls. They can be pretty difficult, especially the kelp vines. Every level has some kind of robot enemy to defeat, which are pretty creative, but man, I really gotta say, I love the way these levels look. Almost everyone is so vibrant and colorful. When you compare Battle for Bikini Bottom with the older, crappier games, the difference is almost night and day. In older games, it's like they didn't really know how to capture SpongeBob in his environment. But here, I wouldn't be surprised if Nick sent these levels in themselves. Give or take a few kelp forests, this game looks pretty nice. I also like how creative they are when they choose levels. You got iconic areas like Jellyfish Fields, Goo Lagoon, Rock Bottom, and they all manage to stand out. Jellyfish Fields has rolling green hills and happy but relaxing music. Rock Bottom is dark and dreary with this sense of a foreboding danger with the music. There's even a point where you go inside SpongeBob's dream where you have to do more basic platforming challenges and enemy gauntlets, but it does make up for it in its difficulty. I swear, Battle for Bikini Bottom veterans can still hear the dream music ringing in their ears to this very day. The hub world, Bikini Bottom, is fun to just walk around in. The music, the characters, and the atmosphere make it awesome. It's a very immersive experience, especially given the fact that this is a kid's game. You can enter pretty much every building you see, which either contain more enemy gauntlets and platforming challenges, or even full levels in some cases. To top it, you can also interact with pretty much everything inside. The fact that I can go inside of the Krusty Krab and see the kitchen was so so insane to a 5-year-old Ryle oh so long ago. Unfortunately, not all the levels are bangers. Case in point, Kelp Forest. I don't know what went wrong here. Everything I said for the previous levels is almost completely absent here. The level looks boring and the design is forgettable. Everything is dark and bland. Most of the missions are tedious and frustrating. There's this one part where you have to collect crystals, and there is so much backtracking. You have to switch between characters, but there's only one switch point all the way back at the start. And of course, it's also home to the worst sliding level in the whole game. I think I could safely say that this is probably rushed towards the end, but hey, that's THQ for you. Bikini Bottom is spread throughout 3 areas, which are separated by, the boss battles. Look, I don't know why I keep treating this game like it's the Jesus of all 3D platformers, but maybe I was expecting a little more here. It's basically dodge some attacks, press B at the right time, and that's it. I feel that's a bit more petty criticism than anything else, but it's important to mention nonetheless. On the other hand, the main boss battles you fight are actually pretty creative. You fight 3 giant robots based off of Sandy, Patrick, and SpongeBob. They still are a little basic, but they're just more creative in their attacks. Sandy fights you in a wrestling match, and Patrick spits toxic ice cream at you in an industrial wasteland. But if that wasn't epic enough, the final boss has you face off against a robot SpongeBob, which was created by a robot Plankton who also wants to marry him. It's really cool. It's just another dodge attacks and hit them while they're down kind of fight, but then it takes a turn for the kick-ass when you go inside the robot SpongeBob in order to destroy its brain. My god, if that isn't the most epic thing you ever heard, then you haven't experienced true bliss. And that's exactly what I call this game, bliss. It's obvious that I'm not the only person who loved this game as a kid. It has a hell of a cult following to this day, with people speedrunning the game and modding it. The fan outcry was so large that a full-blown remake of the game was made. I hear people say that this is one of the best 3D platformers on the GameCube, and when given that statement, I have to say,
no.
listen, as much as I love the game, it's definitely not anything revolutionary. Graphically, the game has definitely aged some, and level design is pretty generic for the early 2000s, but something I can definitely agree with is that this is the best SpongeBob game ever made. And hell, throw in another point for being made within what is arguably the best seasons of SpongeBob, and they have some classic references to the show.
Overall, despite being rough around the edges, I, among many others, managed to love this game. But hey, since I'm on this high of reviewing old nostalgic SpongeBob games, I decided to play its quote-unquote sequel, the SpongeBob Movie game. Will it be as good as Battle for Bikini Bottom?
Whenever this game is mentioned, it's almost always brought up in comparison to its better counterpart, and rightfully so. It's pretty dang obvious where some assets are reused, but I think it would be more fair to judge this game as its own thing. Heavy Iron would again develop this game, being released on October 27th, 2004, which was actually a couple weeks before the movie premiered on November 14th. Immediately, my expectations are set with this box art. Our heroes, SpongeBob and Patrick, are faced with their biggest challenge yet, and they're walking away from it. Wait, you're supposed to stop, Plankton!
Yeah, they're gonna die.
Being a movie tie-in, it has to follow the movie while also being a fun game. Well, A, the game follows the movie well with all the important scenes to understand the story, and B, the game is mostly fun. Instead of being a collectathon, it has more linear levels, I suppose, to go along with the movie's story. The controls are basically a copy-paste from Battle for Bikini Bottom, but the abilities are where it gets interesting. Enemies in the game are actually pretty creative, and they even change theming depending on which level you're in, which is actually an improvement from the last game. Before, every enemy kinda got boring since they're mostly the same in every level, but this actually offers some kind of variety. Since Sandy didn't play a big role in the movie, she was left out as a playable character in this game, which is fine as her abilities were given to SpongeBob and Patrick instead. The main collectible is now manliness points, which actually tie into a main plot device from the movie where SpongeBob wanted to become more manly. They're basically this game's versions of the shiny objects, but they actually serve more of a purpose. Once you collect enough, you can earn upgrade points, which can either be used to upgrade your abilities or give yourself some more health. Each time you upgrade, your attacks become stronger, which in some cases are required to pass certain areas. The level design is alright. I find most levels pretty fun to traverse and explore. However, it just doesn't have the same charm as before since we aren't as familiar with these areas. Most of the important scenes are here, fitting pretty well, and they look pretty nice. But I'd be lying if I said they didn't take any creative liberties, which isn't entirely a bad thing. Hell, in one of the levels you go inside of an ice cream parlor with this weird ice cream room and a cookie forest. There's also this pretty imaginative part of the bar that you're at that has a disco room and a completely out of place lava room. Another, and personally my favorite level, takes place in Planktopolis, with these massive rooms with multiple enemies that have a kind of Bowser's Castle vibe to them. Here and there you'll encounter boss battles against some of the film's antagonists. I think they're pretty bland like the Battle for Bikini Bottom bosses, but they're alright. To make up for the linearity, most of the platforming stages have some kind of side mission or challenge you can warp to in order to get golden spets or Goofy Goober tokens.
totally different.
All of them are pretty straightforward. There's the Combat Arena challenges, which are essentially expanded versions of the enemy gauntlets from Battle for Bikini Bottom. I find the last one to be quite funny as it's just a single jellyfish, which considering how difficult the main level is, I'd like to think that they just wanted to give me a break. There's also the Floating Block and Sponge Ball challenges. I think they managed to make some mechanics from Battle for Bikini Bottom, like the Sponge Ball, a lot more unique and fun to control around, and the wacky visuals just make it feel like a fever dream, quite the wild ride. But then there's the other levels.
Yeah, those general THQ tactics are called mediocrity at its finest.
It's pretty obvious that they had to pad the game since half the levels are various tedious sliding and driving levels. They don't really control the best, either feeling too slippery or even too stiff, which makes no sense. To add to the tedium, there are time and ring challenges that are brutal. I can barely shave off enough time to beat the regular time challenges. The worst part is that they last so long. Most of them go on for several minutes, not even accounting for the macho time challenges.
But you want to know what puts the tartar sauce on this sponge cake? A mermaid paywall.
In order to unlock new abilities, you have to talk with Mindy, the mermaid character from the movie. These abilities are required to beat some levels, which means you basically have to do some of the other challenges to get enough tokens to unlock them. At first it's not so bad, but later on in the game you have to use a bullshit amount of tokens to unlock new abilities, which basically forces you into playing those shitty slide levels again. Beforehand it only happened sometimes, but towards the end it happens twice in a row. First to unlock the Sonic Wave guitar, and then again to go into another driving level. It's completely dumb as they're clearly trying to pad out the game with some pretty shallow reasons as to why you need these tokens. I think if they just included more base missions, you wouldn't need to go through the effort of completing these inane challenges, but I digress. The plot is basically the same as the movie, where Plankton steals King Neptune's crown and frames Mr. Krabs for it. So, SpongeBob and Patrick embark on a quest to get it back, while Plankton takes over Bikini Bottom with his mind-controlled bucket helmets. The way this is relayed in the game is through these odd cutscenes. Some of them are in-game cutscenes that look really nice, even better than Battle for Bikini Bottom. However, the rest are what I can only describe as Windows Movie Maker slideshows consisting of screenshots from the movie and poorly edited images of the characters. What is this, clip art? Then again, this is a THQ General Tactic number 674, a classic, rushing the game. I legitimately think these were just placeholder cutscenes that were never finished. It all heats up at the end when you fight possibly the best boss in the game, King Neptune. You gotta deflect his magic attack using the Krusty Krab's tables and the frozen Mr. Krabs with Goofy Goober Rock playing in the background. Another shitty cutscene later and it's over. Honestly, I'm mixed on this game. I am quite nostalgic for it and it feels a lot like Battle for Bikini Bottom, controlling nice and looking pretty good. But then there's just the unnecessary difficulty spike and the insane amount of it you need to do in order to beat the game with just the bare minimum Goofy Goober tokens. If you want another fix of that early 2000s SpongeBob platformer goodness, then I consider picking it up. Otherwise, I just stick to Battle for Bikini Bottom.
Well, it was certainly a nice time revisiting these old games I haven't played in years. They may reek of the early 2000s, but they're still quality titles that I recommend you play if you haven't already. But god damn it, the movie game not being as good as Battle for Bikini Bottom pisses me off just enough for me to need to do something drastic. Something everyone knows will get the job done. I'm gonna protest! And who better to protest than the people that kickstarted this all from the start? To the THQ headquarters!
The fun is on the down low. THQ has got to go. The fun is on the down low. THQ has got to go.
Sir, what are you doing?
I'm protesting my petty SpongeBob perfectionism.
But sir, this is a Wendy's.
What? Can I get a Baconator?
Damn it, I know I should have asked for my change.